with that, I'll kick us off. So obviously, I won't take too much time on myself, but Patrick Allen at Silicon Ranch oversee all plant operations and asset management function. And one of the little twists that we're going to do is we're going to tell you guys how we got into the industry a little bit here. So myself, I was doing wholesale distribution, got tired of selling candy and cigarettes across the United States and wanted to do something a little bit more impactful with my life. And growing up in the Bay Area, my father and my grandfather were both Berkeley, California firefighters, so they really kind of lived through a little bit of the evolution. And when I called him, I had just recently been promoted, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I think I want to jump out of sales." And he's like, "Why? Everybody's got to eat. What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm gonna go jump in with my brother-in-law who works in the industry as well over at Solve Energy." He's like, "Hey, you should come down with your operation and experience background to do this." And I'll never forget these words, and I like to rib him all the time now. He's like, "Do you really want to jump on that hippie solar train? Do you guys really think that is where you want to ride?" And so, yes, we're on the solar coaster. There's some ups and downs as the entry speech that we heard yesterday, which I think brought some good light to things. But happy to be on the crazy train. And with that, Jesse, hand it over to you.
All right, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Jesse Simons. I'm a co-founder and chief strategy officer at SOLARCYCLE. And how I got into the solar industry is that I had spent about 20 years working in climate and clean energy advocacy. So I basically spent my life adjacent to solar, but not directly working for it. I was at Sierra Club, and basically we were working day in and day out to make sure that we could get as much solar and wind as batteries online as possible. And what became increasingly clear as we were doing it is that there was a risk that we were going to destroy the planet while we were trying to save it, not just in terms of like filling all the landfills with old solar panels and wind blades and batteries, but more concerning and more of an opportunity was how do we make sure that we start making all the new solar panels, all the new batteries, all the windmills with the recycled material for the old ones? How do we take renewable energy assets and make them themselves 100% renewable? So I went to the people I've been working with in the solar industry, pitched this idea, and they're like, "This is great." As you mentioned earlier, it's been something that the industry's known is a big deal for a long time. And so we got investment from the founders of Nextracker, SunPower, Solaria, a bunch of the big players came in, said, "Get this thing going." And here we are 5 years in, we've got 5 facilities. We recycled 1 million panels last year. We're on track to do more than that this year. We've got a facility within 500 miles of basically 80% of all solar in the country. Too much Celsius. Soon the planet. And basically we've developed a platform that is extremely advanced. It's 96% of the raw valuable material out of the panel, returns it back to the supply chain, 100% landfill diversion, and we've been working with all the people on this stage and many of the people in this room, and just excited to be here today.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for making it in. My name is Vidha Dixit, and I support sustainability, ESG, and investor relations at EDPR North America. We are a developer, asset owner, and operator for utility scale and DG solar, wind, and storage systems. And the way I got into renewables is through a LinkedIn job post. So very happy to be here now. It's true though. I actually originally left undergrad and worked in commercial construction, and through that role, I just saw the large volumes of construction and demolition waste that are on commercial construction sites. In my fun weekend job, I worked at a zero waste store selling bamboo toothbrushes. And I was like, there's gotta be a better way to tackle what's coming out of these huge structures. And I decided to go back to school. So I went to Colorado State. They have an MBA that specializes in greenhouse gas accounting and corporate sustainability. And through that opportunity, I started working in the sustainability space with Schneider Electric, Food Bank of the Rockies, and now with EDP Renewables. I was brought on to help develop our circularity plans and programs, which has since evolved as also the regulatory landscape in the EU has evolved for sustainability and non-financial reporting. And very thankful to be here with you today and to partner with SolarCycle on some of the work that we're doing and learn from the others on stage.
Hi, hopefully everybody has a bamboo toothbrush out in the audience. Hello everyone, Tyson Mulhart, Director of Sales at Prologis Energy Solutions. My team works with customers to implement on-site solar, storage, EV charging, microgrids at scale, both on our buildings as well as customer-owned or leased facilities. For those of you not familiar with Prologis, we're the global leader in logistics real estate with 1.3 billion square feet under management in 20 countries, serving over 6,500 customers. A couple fun facts: about 3% of the world's GDP flows through our buildings, and we're number 2 in the US for corporate on-site solar. How did I get into this crazy, wonderful industry that we're in? Before energy, I was actually in a touring rock band for about a decade, traveling around the US and touring Europe. And after that, I realized just how far behind we were in the energy transition, and that really inspired me to do something. So in 2013, I started in residential solar sales, hitting the phones, and here we are today.
Beautiful.
Hi, I'm Say, and I work with Illuminate USA. I grew up hearing words like climate change and energy crisis. So at 15, I decided I wanted to grow up and do something about it. So 10 years later, I work at Illuminate USA and help them produce solar panels in a sustainable way. And I'm happy to be here.
That was great. Compared to the others. Hi, I'm Serge. I'm in Nextera Energy. I'm a senior manager in asset management, focusing on repower and asset optimization. I think I should introduce Nextera. It's a big name, but maybe many people do not know it. We have 37.5 gigawatt under management. We develop, own, and play for the long run. We have 10.5 gigawatts of solar currently generating, so not that much. And so happy to be here and thinking about the life cycle of how we think of solar panels, because we're getting to it. How I got into the industry, actually, I just got that question, so I had to come up with something. After, in my last year of undergrad, I was fascinated with cars, and I was doing mechanical engineering, so I wanted to do something cool. And I figured out that there's something called World Solar Challenge. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it here, but I tried to build a car, and tried is an emphasis because that didn't eventually participate, but I tried to build a car that was run on solar energy to participate in that. It was great, but I met a lot of people in the industry and met someone who eventually started a engineering design and contracting for CNI customers in the Middle East. I moved to the US in 2021, and I've been with Nextera for the last 4 years, so happy to be here.
Beautiful. Thank you, guys. Happy to be here with everybody. Want to turn a question out to the crowd. Won't make it stand up and go up and down, but as we're talking about end of life and PV recycling right now, show of hands, who is currently, when you have module waste on site, who is currently recycling them at 100%? We got a lot of wood to chop in this industry.
Okay.
Hey Patrick, there's
We got a lot of potential
cool
clients.
slide here too. Oh, is that separate than this? Sorry. That's not many hands. We need more hands.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll work on it.
Yeah, I've heard, we pivoted to Slido, so no, but, and then the next part, which I think we do have built into Slido as well, just wanted to know why or why not. I mean, that can kind of run the gamut of, is it cost, is it policy, is it, convenience, again, something that, at Silicon Ranch, one of the things that drew me here, I've been here about a year now, is, we make the tough decisions regardless of whether it's a hard corner or not to get through, because the better way through is the hard way typically, and it's not easy. But module recycling, I know that I'm sure many of you in the crowd are familiar with our local superstar Nick DeVries, and I know that him and Jesse worked extremely hard to still self-plug. One of the first commercial contracts that I believe you guys signed was with Silicon Ranch, and again, it's that. We keep some of those materials and particles in our office as some of the first panels that we recycle, because it is something that in order to be renewable, we have to be able to reuse and renew what we are currently using. We can't just continue to take out of the ground, because then in some ways we're no different than some of the others that we're trying to replace and be renewable. So love the comments that are coming in here. Logistics of drop-off, that is a great one that I feel like, especially depending on what types of modules you're repowering with or you're replacing, can definitely be something that's pulled in. Complicated and costly, I would agree. I think, Jesse, you guys are doing some good stuff to potentially drill that thing down here. But continue to pull those up and pull those in. And then one of the last pieces, of course, Jesse, I know you're going to be interested in this one. What do you guys look for in terms of when you are choosing a recycling partner? You know, there are, again, I can go in a lot of different directions, but, and I know that more people are coming into the industry, and again, Jesse, I know that you're deeply entrenched in this space, but I think when you look at, God, I should have prepared for this, but knowing how many millions and millions of modules are installed, not even just in the United States, but across the world. I don't know, do you have any kind of a number on that one?
Sure, there's about 400 million panels installed in the US, so more panels than people. And we will soon have more panels than people globally. I think it's at 5 billion now, but it's rapidly increasing.
Wow.
So one way to put that in perspective is the amount of silver that is in the solar panels in the US today at 400 million would make it the largest silver mine in the world.
That's an amazing statistic. And so when you think about that and knowing that they have a life cycle, if they're going to be repowered, we could potentially turn those over. And then in the growth, you know, if we expect the industry to double, triple, quadruple in size in the next couple of years, if the projections and numbers are right, which I think everybody in this room hopes and believes that they are, you know, that number could go from, what, 5 billion to 10 billion, 20 billion in the next couple of years. I mean, we should be able to see that. So, you know, knowing that raw material, one of the comments from one of the introductory speech was that in the battery space, you know, by, I think it was 2050, we can just continue to reuse the amount of material that we have to continue to power. And I think we're getting close to that as well in the renewable energy space with the PV modules. So compliance, cost, convenience seem to be kind of the main drivers. Documentation, especially when you're thinking about tax credits and different things, I would think that is definitely a big one. And yes, nice looking shoes, Jesse. I'm a little envious.
That's what people look for.
What kind of swag do you guys have? Beautiful. So we'll continue to march on here. We got a lot of great topics to get to, so we're going to run back through. So Serge, I'll kick this one over to you first. You know, as the approach your company takes to modular recycling and circularity across the life cycle of a PV project, you know, how does NextEra look at that? And then we'll just kind of move back through from the group here.
Yeah, so one of our core motto is do the right thing, and I've seen that many answers is do the right thing. And I think being the leader in the solar industry, we want to represent the industry in a good way, right? So we try to think holistically, develop the right way, like think from the start, what are we doing at the end? And what we are at today is a really good spot with everyone here. I think we're all thinking about the same thing, that the solar industry has matured so much and efficiency has gone up, that we are at the point where we should start considering, and the panel that was right before us was on point on like, we want to upgrade, put new equipment on site, maximize the value of the interconnections that we have and so on. So what we look for is an ethical process to get rid of the panels that we want, starting with, can we reuse them? Can we refurbish them? And lastly, can we recycle them and never put it in a landfill, because there's a lot of value in these panels that Jesse knows most about. So with that, I think we look at partnerships across the industry. We don't want to be taking all the risk. We want to be working with all of you guys to come up with the most cost-efficient solution to dispose of these panels and unlock more efficiency and maybe become the biggest silver mine in the whole of the galaxy. So,
Galaxy, right? Here we go.
Take it up a level.
Yeah. Say over to you.
Sustainability is woven into the fabric of our company at Renewables USA. So when we are making solar modules, we are thinking about every single material that goes inside a panel, and we are ensuring that we are designing our modules so that they're recyclable. We have an end-of-life management plan for every single material, even before it enters our facility or arrives at our facility. And we are committed to keep making panels and solar panels the right way going forward.
That's great. Yeah, we take a full life cycle approach to our projects, and that really starts with the initial development and underwriting, so plan ahead. So really, recycling is now built into our asset management portfolio, et cetera, and it's really not an afterthought. I don't think we have that luxury anymore because the dump is not an option. And I think when you're building your business at scale, consistency really matters, and so having a standardized process really avoids future uncertainty and headaches and costs, right, if it's all budgeted on the front end. So we do have an exclusive partnership with SOLARCYCLE, which helps us across the US, scale our recycling efforts and really have a consistent approach to how we manage end of life or repowering.
I agree with everything they said. The other layer that I'd like to share about EDP RNA is that our parent company is publicly traded on the European Stock Exchange. If anybody else here is part of a European organization, then you are subject, based on the budget and ROI and everything, you're subject to the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, CSRD, and the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, CSDDD. CSRD and CSDDD are legal requirements that mandate non-financial reporting on your assets. And part of CSRD, or rather how it's deployed and the framework for reporting, is ESRS, the European, what is it called? I've got it here. Sustainability Reporting Standards. And ESRS E5 is literally titled Resource Use and Circular Economy. So the first thing is we have to report on these topics. Okay, we can report on them, but are we doing it? And once we realize, okay, we are going to be beholden to these requirements, we have to start building out that program internally, finding those partners externally, sourcing our products from the right folks, and making sure that it's then written into contractual language, standard operating procedures, project execution plans, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the big driver for us at EDP-RNA.
So we're kind of in a different, boat than these guys, because we're trying to build a circular economy platform that works for each of these different companies, and they're all completely different, right? Like Illuminate is making solar panels, so we need to figure out, they don't like super sacks. We need, 12-kilo boxes that go on a pallet, and we need to be able to handle a totally different thing for them than we do for NextEra. NextEra came recently and audited our site and gave us a big thumbs up, but they had a whole bunch of different questions that we got from Prologis. Prologis, 3% of the world's economy touches one of their warehouses. They're the second largest rooftop solar owner. We had to come up with a very specialized, bespoke solution for what they've got. EDP went through a very rigorous process before selecting us as their recycler. And as you were mentioning, Nick DeVries came, visited our site early on. We were our first utility scale partner. And what we've learned through all this is basically you have to sit down with every customer and develop a specific project for them at every phase of the life cycle, from the factory and construction, yield loss, to construction breakage, to O&M and storm loss, all the way to this up and coming thing that I think Serge and others will talk about, and the last panel talked about, around repowering, where you really get this inflection point and we start seeing huge amounts of solar panels reaching end of life. Our goal is to have a platform for the industry so that when that happens and we go from a few million panels a year to tens of millions, we have a truly advanced circular economy platform that gets all the value out of the panel and can provide it as a service to our customers at a cost that's below landfill. So it basically becomes a no-brainer to recycle rather than throw your panels away.
No, that's great, and it's a great segue into the next piece, to where we all want to recycle, but there are different stages of projects. There are different entities that are involved. So wanted to start with you, Vidha, to think is it in the shipping and the construction operations, storms, repowering, as this industry is getting ready to revive a lot of these projects? Where do you guys see the most opportunity for that repowering or for that recycling?
Yeah, I'll speak for us specifically. Our DG portfolio has a lot more legacy assets that are undergoing the kind of repower timeline right now. However, on the utility scale side, we were historically a wind developer and asset owner. So most of our utility scale solar sites are actually only about 5-ish years old, or less than 5 years old, I should say. So for us, the concerns or breakage that we were seeing was on construction and install, and then if a weather event came through, and I know there were some great panels yesterday kind of about NatCat and how you tackle that. So that's where we're seeing the opportunities right now. However, as was mentioned by a lot of folks here, is repowering is going to be here sooner than later, and it's better to have those plans in place so that when that flood occurs, that you are able, you have the partners in place, and that they have the capacity to take in your material as well. The previous panel, there were some great documents from Connor that shared what that capacity split up may look like. But for us at this time, it is construction breakage, although we're also seeing manufacturers now that are working on the way they're shipping or crating their panels to kind of prevent that as well. So we are seeing a little bit less, but it still occurs. And then every now and then, of course, there's going to be something on the O&M side. I heard somebody else chat the other day, and they said that somebody was hitting baseballs onto their field. So you just never know what's going to be happening. And so it's important to have a partner in the space. I see him.
That's beautiful. Say, I'd like to go over to you when you're talking about the manufacturers, and so I'm assuming that you guys would like every single one that you start to move through the process, but is there anything, and shipping is probably a big one that sits with you guys, but in the process of manufacturing these modules, do you guys have a point where you end up scrapping something you recycle, or is shipping the biggest point for you guys, or where do you guys see that recycling as far as that stage of life?
One of my proudest achievements is that despite producing over 9 million panels a year, we have never thrown a single PV module in a landfill. Since day one, we have, thank you. Since day one, we have partnered with amazing organizations like SOLARCYCLE, who have not only supported mission, but they share our values. Like, these panels are really resource rich. So they should not be in our landfills. In fact, these materials should be recovered and returned as raw materials to make more solar panels. And that is obviously the goal, but we do rely heavily on our recycling network to ensure that not only our scrap PV modules stay out of the landfill, but everything that goes into them is also kept out of the landfill. And to answer your question, if we do have customers who do end up, we rarely have them. Like Vidha said, we have been researching and planning to ensure like every single module that we send to our customers reaches there in a usable state. So we've rarely had an occasion where we had some scrap modules returned from our clients, and then we have also taken care of them and kept them out of the landfill.
Beautiful. Sir, we'd like to go over to you with over 10 gigawatts in operation of solar. I'm sure you guys have the life cycle where some are older, some are brand new. Where do you see that coming up mostly, and when you guys need to recycle?
We have a bunch of sites. So we were early adopters of solar starting in 2012 on the extremely large scale. We're talking 500 megawatts since 2011, so it's insane. And the amount of repowers, and I was extremely happy to see the panel before us and everyone here talk about repower, that this is going to change the volume of panels to be recycled by an order of magnitude at least. We have a short period of time, and with the incentives that we have in place that I think we're going to touch on in a minute, we have a once in a, as long as things stays the way they are, you never know, maybe they come back, but we have a once in a decade opportunity to revamp, repower, rebuild, whatever you want to call it, and make these sites brand new. Because, and I've been, for the past 2 days we've been talking, we're not hitting our generations, O&M is higher than it is, there is degradation, there is less rain than we thought, so there's a slew of problems that at some point it's going to be non-fixable and you have to change it. Whatever the problem is, one of these solutions is going to be this. And for us, repower is not coming, it is here. We have already done one here in California, Resurgence, but that was a different, not PV technology to PV, and we are currently doing one 50 megawatt in Colorado that's PV to PV following the 80-20 and the surgical approach that was described in the previous panel. So that was our toe in the water, and then we're being extremely successful with that, and I think the gates are going to open really soon. What was the follow-up question that I missed?
No, it was just, what stage in the life cycle of the project do you really see this fitting in? I feel like now that we're in this point in the industry, if you have projects that are aging, repowering is going to be by far the largest quantity that we see. But do you guys see in standard operation a lot of breakage in O&M or in the construction phase across your projects?
Yeah, so I'll take the latter first. Yes. We have a lot of big fleet in Florida, and there's a lot of hurricanes that happens. We have, I don't know if it's coincidence or, but like the best solar sites are where tornado hits. You're talking deserts, New Mexico, Texas, so we're not, happens a lot. So there's a lot of O&M breakage, let's call it that way. Construction breakage as well, but I think less than 2% nowadays. We're becoming really efficient. And to answer your earlier question on the life cycle, I think it really depends on the site. If we have a place where a customer is interested in more energy, more value, we would go pre-power that. If the site is underperforming and we have ways to fix it, we would fix it. So it's dependent on every site, every place. It's not one solution fits all. So there's all of the above, I would say.
Yeah. Tyson, and I got a little bit of a wrinkle different for you, Jesse, but where do you see that come up most in?
I have some fun ones for you, Patrick. So, a lot of our sites are in infill markets. These are very urban areas, and one of them is actually bullets hitting the modules on certain holidays, primarily New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. So that is somewhat real. I would say it's the largest cause of damage, but very little in shipping, very little in execution, construction. It's mostly weather events or human-caused baseballs or what have you.
Yeah. No, I'd like to say that we haven't seen any buckshot or baseballs or anything go through our panels, but it's definitely something I see more often than I'd like. But from your perspective, Jesse, where do you see those rolling in most often?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to change over time, right? But at this moment, say of the 1 million panels we got in last year, the majority of that was from NatCat, like hailstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes. That was more than 50%. And then on the smaller end was the repower, right? That was maybe 10 or 15%. But I think what you're going to see over the coming years is that starting to flip as those projects that Serge will talk about later and others, you got all these projects from the 2010s that are starting to age out. They're becoming projects that no longer necessarily pencil out. You can make a lot more with newer panels or inverters going wrong, right? And so at that point, it makes sense to start repowering, and we think that's going to be probably 80% of the market 5 years from now. And the other thing we're seeing that we weren't expecting was that inverters are failing actually first. So the thing we're seeing repower earlier than panels in a lot of cases is the AC side. And so we've actually started getting into helping our customers figure out, again, a tailored, bespoke plan for how they can deal with the AC side of their recycling as well as the DC side. And if anyone has any questions, that guy over there, Brady, raise your hand. He's helping lead our electronic balance of system recycling. This is a much more complicated part of the business. And so everything, like I said, is very tailored to the specific thing, but that's coming up a lot. So in terms of repower, I think we're starting to see a lot coming from the bigger players. We're seeing some commercial industrial. One of our big customers is Luminace in Brookfield. They were on the last panel. We're starting to see that. Rural electric solar is bringing in a lot of repower. But right now what's coming in is the EBOS inverters and transformers and full skids.
That's great to hear. Good to know that it's expanding, again, trying to keep that renewable theme running. I know we touched on this a little bit in some of your company intros of kind of what you're doing with recycling or if you have programs or not, but and Jesse, I know that you're in a little bit of a different seat here, so I'm going to jump past you and go back to Vidha here. Was it policy? Was it cost? Was it company mandate? Really what ended up driving, because it sounds like everybody up here on this panel, their company takes an extremely hard stance that this has to be done. There is no option I know cost and convenience and a lot of these things that were thrown out end up saying like, well, why we are not doing it right now. But it does not seem like that really exists up here on that panel. I know the Silicon Ranch takes that stance as well. So, what really drove your company to really make sure that that was a mandate?
Yeah, I think I think of it as almost like a four-pronged approach. The first is kind of the regulatory landscape in the EU, which then feeds into what we're doing here in North America because of the way we're integrated. The second would be actually the interest of investors and our energy off-takers. In some of our agreements, we may have mandates to manage material along with some other ESG or sustainability clauses that we are required to execute throughout the life of the PPA. So that's another driver that has supported us in building this out. The third would be boots on the ground. So what are our landowners asking for? What is required of the AHJ or the permitting body that's in the area? What is written in your decommissioning agreements that you've made with those landowners or neighbors or counties? And can you execute that? And do you have the partnerships to execute that? So that's kind of the third branch. And then the fourth is truly reputational risk and our external goals that we've already put out into the cloud. And so we have to really meet those four criteria, and then it makes it more of an easy sell, because if we can't meet these four extremely important stakeholder areas, then one, we're not able to build this important resource to bring clean electrons on in a responsible way. And also, it prevents us from future engagement. Now we're seeing, of course, I'm on the wind side, so I'm dealing with wind repowers more than solar. But the growing sentiment, and I'm sure a lot of y'all are seeing, is it's a lot of NIMBYism. And within that, there's a lot of questions about what's happening with this material. And that is a serious risk to the industry. So if you are not contemplating this stuff right now, it's doing a disservice not only to your site, but to the industry at large, because we are all going to face the consequences if it's not done correctly. So that in itself is a huge driver. But those four-pronged areas are really what push us.
I'm going to double down on Vidha's last point. I think everyone in this room has a responsibility to protect this industry, and there are a lot of NIMBYs and naysayers out there, and it's easy to say, well, what do you do at the end of this thing's useful life? So, to have a plan and really set things up ahead of time really, I think, keeps those folks at bay a bit. But, we do have internal sustainability and life cycle management priorities. We're seeing an increase in, to your point, customer demand, right? They want to know, hey, what is the plan here? What are you doing at the end of the life cycle here? So those are the primary drivers. What we do internally, it's very important to our company.
Yeah.
And I just want to add really quickly, I saw a lot of questions or rather concerns about cost. I'm curious if you've actually done a cost analysis of landfilling versus recycling, and also including maybe those non-financial costs of what it may impact you with wherever you're developing. So I truly, yes, there is a cost implication for recycling, but truly in the grand scheme of things, building it into your budget in order to continue developing the correct way is really critical, and I don't see it as the biggest hindrance.
I'd say I'd like to hear your thoughts on that as well, being a manufacturer of these. I feel like it takes on a little bit of a different view. So, over to you.
We have never entertained not recycling. It fits our business, it is the right thing to do, so why won't we do it? And we are very, very fortunate to have a robust network of recyclers. We're making millions of solar panels right now, and we want to continue making them the right way.
And sort of wrap it up with you guys, what stance you guys take.
Echo whatever was said, but one thing that you mentioned, the policy aspect of it, that I find interesting, that unlocks a lot of value for us, is we still qualify for tax credits until 2029, 2030 if we're good enough. And this policy is unlocking a lot of repowers. And for us to take these incentives, these taxpayers' incentive, we want to be responsible on how we are approaching all of this, because you're inviting scrutiny on why are you throwing away millions of panels, they are still working. There's one question is why not resell the used? So the question is more than each panel is working or not. It's like the whole system needs to be revamped. So, and we want to capitalize on the tax credits for us to be able to do so. So doing all of that and being and cheaping out on like 1% of the project cost because we want to not pay that for recycling, it's not the smartest thing to do, to put it nicely. So it is the one, like everyone says, we have not even not considered not recycling. Like that as a, so like this is our bottom line is recycling, not landfill, but we always start with, let's reuse if we can. We have an immense fleet. Do we need that before we give it away? Is the panel broken? Can we fix it in some way? Can we work with someone? And then if these two parts don't work, we want to recycle, and that's like the bottom line of it.
Oh, I love it. And Jesse, I feel like you started to talk on it already. The number one question that we have coming in with 8 different likes, and to think about it in the next 5 years, do we really see transformers, racking, wiring, inverters becoming part of this renewable recycling industry?
Yeah, 100%. Like it's coming up. But in our first couple of years of operation, it didn't come up much at all. But in the last year, in the last 3 months, we've helped recycle or repurpose or get the parts out of over 1 million pounds of inverters, transformers. We take whole skids, like in the biggest case, right? We'll take massive transformers that are, fill a truck, a single one. We took 100 of those recently. And then on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of these commercial industrial sites or residential customers, we're getting their optimizers and their smaller transformers. And so I think it's the first thing we're seeing. And absolutely, if the goal is to create a truly circular economy platform for the solar industry, it can't just be about PV, right? The title of this is PV recycling, but we also have to figure out how do you get the rest of the system? How do you get all the copper and the steel and the other valuable materials that are inside those massive central inverters back out there? And ideally, there's a question here about why not resell, reuse existing modules. I'll let somebody talk about that on the module side, but you can do the same thing on the inverters. Like a couple of these projects we've done, Brady's done an excellent job going out and finding the network and being able to resell some of those inverters and transformers. In some cases, we couldn't find a buyer for the whole thing, but we were able to take out the parts. And there's a very thriving, complex ecosystem with people, buying those parts from us, and then they sell it on eBay, and maybe you'll buy that part, right? Or somebody will do it. And then in the worst case, we've had to, in a few cases, with whatever the shell was left over, then we'll take that, scrap it, and recycle it. But at the end of the day, all that material will need to be recycled, and it's part of how you get there. And a lot of the customers we're working with, when they commit to recycling their solar panels, they're also committing to all the surrounding assets.
I'd like to hear just really quick before we go to the rest of the panel, what we're thinking about the next 5 years. When you guys are taking those parts and getting those in, Jesse, and you're looking to potentially resell those, partially a selfish question here because I think some of these hard to find parts. Who are you guys taking that to? Are you guys reselling that, or who is actually reselling that out to the market?
Well, so this is where it gets complicated. We have Brady who's running this whole program for us, and again, it's very bespoke, and it really depends on that moment in time, right? You go out, we have a network, we're built by the solar industry, for the solar industry. We know everybody out there because they're already recycling with us. We have contracts with over 100 of the largest solar asset owners, EPCs, all the people in the industry. And so what we did in this case was when we learned of these large projects, we called our customers and said, hey, we've got this, do you need it? And then all of a sudden a bunch of people came forward and said, yeah, for the full asset. And then for the ones that we had to part out, then we figured out what that ecosystem looked like. And we weren't doing that directly. Once it got the parts, that then there are people who exist to do that and basically get on eBay. And we're working, that's like phase one. Eventually we want to make this more sophisticated, but that's the starting point. And there are people out there I think who will be refurbished. I know there are people out there that will refurbish these as well. That's not our business, but we're happy to be part of that overall ecosystem.
I love it. Tyson, looks like you wanted to...
I was just going to add, outside of just solar and storage, we're also having SolarCycle look at our EV chargers that are end of life as well. So the goal is to really get to a point where we're recycling everything.
Beautiful.
I'd like to add one thing. I think the focus is panels just because of the scale. We usually have 12 to 15,000 panels per one inverter.
Right.
Maybe by weight, I don't know, maybe you're the expert, but by quantity and by type. And an inverter, most likely someone has an experience taking apart a transformer. It's not brand new technology, but a panel is relatively new in how we approach it. So that's the other thing on like the previous question on like why panels focus rather than transformers, cables, and so on. So I guess just the novelty of this technology is, we're at the stage where we have to figure it out, right?
Yeah. And from the manufacturer point of view, in 5 years, where do you really see this? Do you see kind of continuing in the same vein, or do you guys end up being able to jump into the recycling on a larger scale to continue to reuse all that raw material to not have to continue to mine more?
That is definitely the goal, but I do want to take a question from Slido, the last one. Do you audit, if that's okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we do audit potential recycling facilities, and what we look for when doing that is just making sure that they are doing the right thing and not just saying that they're doing the right thing. And I would encourage everyone looking at recycling solutions to audit their facilities in person. That is what I do for my company and what I will continue doing. And it goes beyond just like looking through their permits and looking through all their paperwork. You should go out there and ensure that they are actually doing what they are saying they're doing. And then to come back to our 5 years down question, it is very important that you maintain relationships with the right people, because sustainability at scale is no longer just a challenge, it is the industry-wide expectation. So it is important that you form those right partnerships, one, and then also I see recycling becoming truly circular, where the raw materials that are recovered, or the materials that are recovered eventually get returned as raw materials to make more panels into our industry.
And Vidha, to wrap it up, I mean, being one of the leaders of the industry in sustainability, as well as one of your true day-to-day living and breathing responsibilities, how do you guys see this evolving in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of seeing it already today through restrictions such as FEOC and through the requirements for domestic content. The need to have domestic material to continue building our sites is critical. And so the more that we can engage together to build that industry within our industry is really critical if we want to continue deploying clean electrons on the grid so you and I have power. Then we have to start working together. We've got to write it into our contracts. We've got to budget into CapEx, into OpEx, and make it happen.
Beautiful. Do you want to jump in on that?
On the 5-year thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think the next 5 years are really pivotal for circularity in solar. We're going to see unprecedented scale, right? Today it's maybe 5 million panels a year reaching end of life. In the United States, it will be 30 to 50 million in the next 5 years. That scale is going to create all sorts of innovation. We're going to see all sorts of competition, which is great, all sorts of people striving to provide customers with the best service at the lowest possible cost. And I think that's the other thing that the next 5 years is going to bring. I saw an earlier question about when will we reach landfill parity? When it be cheaper to recycle than landfill? And that's definitely coming in the next 5 years because of innovation, operational excellence, competition. We are really close now to being cheaper than landfill. As Vidha said, do your research. And when you do the research, you'll find out that it's actually like $10 a panel to recycle, to landfill today, a non-hazardous panel, and almost twice that for a hazardous panel. And recycling is much less than that on the hazardous side. And the final thing I'll say, and it kind of gets to what I heard several people on the panel talk about, is I think we're truly going to close the loop on the solar circular economy in this next 5 years in terms of ensuring that all of these renewable energy assets are themselves 100% renewable. And it starts with what Illuminate's doing by buying we're not just taking recycled glass and using it as road bed or road beads or landfill or those things. We're taking it and currently turning it into fiberglass, but the vision here is to build a first of its kind glass factory in Georgia where we're going to take that recycled cullet and melt it down and make new glass sheets and sell it to Illuminate. And then from there, we can do the same thing with the silver bars we're getting. We can make silver paste, we can make copper foil, and there's nothing stopping us physically from basically taking one old solar panel and being able to make the energy that's the equivalent of 3 times that, right? Because it's the same weight, but now it's 3 times as efficient as a new panel. And so that's what's going to be coming in the next few years. And I think I'm just proud to be working with, partners like this and in this room to make that dream a reality.
That's amazing. I know we're out of time here, but I think the overarching theme is this is something that has to be done in our industry. This is not, something that's cool. This is not something that is, what you should be doing. This is a must that we need to be doing. And especially at such a turbulent time, in the world, realistically, where we have, continued to take center stage as far as an industry, where I like to use the saying, we're literally changing the way how we plug in our phone. We are changing the way how the world is powered, which we've been really running off of oil and gas for the last almost 150 plus years. And so to really change the world in a monumental way that we are able to leave behind for our kids and grandkids and future generations, the full life cycle circularity has to be something that we all take as a front stance. And I think everybody up here and many in this crowd have. And so enjoyed running this through with you guys today. Hopefully you're able to get some good information out of it, and appreciate it, everybody. Thank you very much.